Who really is Donald J. Trump?
Narcissist,
jackass,
egomaniac,
the joke of a candidate,
race baiting,
is outrageous,
bigoted,
xenophobic,
Trump's a racist,
Racist. But is any of this true?
Why do you want to be president?
Because I can make the country great again. The country is run by a group of people that don't know what they're doing. I'm not just blaming Obama. I mean, goes on all sides. $100 million people out of the workforce. It's the highest number it's ever been. I think people are fed up with incompetent politicians that don't get things done. I'm telling you. I think they're fed up. And I think this is going to be an election that's going to be largely based on competence.
Donald Trump is the definition of the American success story. He is known for only selling the best of the best hotels, the best golf courses, the best steaks, the best, whatever, the best clothing. He is known for the best, and I think that's what distinguishes Donald Trump from other businessmen, is that not only is he known for making the best and for the highest quality brands, but he actually delivers. He never just builds something up. He always delivers.
I've always stressed really quality. I want to go quality all the way. I've always stressed that quality. People come from Germany, from England, from Japan, from all over the world to buy my buildings and to buy things that I'm doing because they know it's going to be quality.
Donald John Trump was born to Mary and Fred Trump on June 14, 1946 in New York City. Fred Trump was one of the town's largest real estate moguls and had wed Mary in 1936. After acts of misbehavior as a small child by Donald, including punching his music teacher when he was in second grade because, as he puts it, he didn't know a thing about music, Fred and Mary enrolled Donald in the New York Military Academy, where Donald attained the highest rank of cadet first captain. Trump, while attending college, worked at his father's company, Elizabeth Trump & Son. Trump graduated from the Wharton School of Finance with a bachelor's in economics in 1968. Trump began working at the company full-time after college, and alongside his father began work on his first project that was the Swifton Village apartment complex in Cincinnati. After increasing the complex's occupancy rate from 34% to 100%, Trump and his father sold the complex and made a profit of $1.1 million. After going against his father's advice and getting into the real estate market in Manhattan, Trump would develop iconic properties such as Riverside South, the Grand Hyatt, and most notably, Trump Tower. You see, Donald Trump, when he moved to Manhattan, was so smart because he was already trying to brand himself, and he did so pretty successfully, just with the name, the Trump Organization. In The Art of the Deal, Trump talks about that when he was creating the Trump Organization, he named it that to make it sound like this big conglomerate of businesses and real estate moguls, and that shows how he just started off. He started off small, relatively, and now he's, by going to Manhattan, by creating the Trump Organization, he has propelled himself into this success, and that's kind of what led into the creation of Trump Tower. Trump Tower is now considered one of the most iconic pieces of real estate in New York City, and the building, which includes an office lobby as well as a 5-level atrium which has a waterfall, shops, cafes, and more, brings in millions yearly for the Trumps. Even the iconic boardroom from Trump's show The Apprentice was a television set that was located inside of Trump Tower.
I live here, I work here. It's become one of the great buildings anywhere in the world.
It's incredible that Trump Tower is 30 years old. It's only 1 year younger than I am, so it really is amazing. It's really been at the heart of the Trump family, as well as the heart of New York.
He wanted to change a skyline. He wanted to do something different. He wanted to really push the boundary. It was really the first total mixed-use project that had any real recognition throughout the world. When you have a building that has retail, that has an office component, residential above, all in an incredible address. That's now being done in other places in the world.
The #1 tourist attraction in New York. Tourists come from all over the world, and they come through the atrium of Trump Tower. It's a beautiful space, one of the most beautiful spaces in New York.
Over the course of history, there's been many buildings that somewhat signify a company, but none to the degree that Trump Tower really signifies our company, our family, our brand.
Highly respected for its architecture, totally respected for its location. People love Trump Tower, and so do I.
You know, the media tries to paint this picture that Donald Trump is a sexist, and I've always found this just really ironic. I mean, in The Art of the Comeback, he says that women are the dominant sex. And in the late 1980s, when he built Trump Tower, he put Barbara A. Rez in charge of constructing the building, and it's a phenomenal structure. So that's something I've always found ironic because it's just so far from the truth.
I had a woman who was in charge of the building of Trump Tower many years ago, before it was even thought, before anybody would have even thought of it, and did a fantastic job. I have given women more opportunity than I would say virtually anybody in the construction industry. The Persians, they're great negotiators. And by the way, it is all fellas, I hate to say this, they haven't figured out that the women are smarter yet. So, it's going to take them about another 150 years.
What's always been impressive to me about Trump is the way he's able to take a project that, was taking somebody a bunch of time and a bunch of money, and he's able to create it ahead of time and under budget. And there's no greater example of Trump doing this than the women's skating rink in New York City, which he did a phenomenal job on, if he may say so himself. In 1980, Mayor Ed Koch planned to spend 2.5 years renovating the women's skating rink. But a whopping 6 years went by and little to no work on the rink had been accomplished. Trump took over the project without the city paying any more than they had already, completed it in 3 months, and spent nearly $800,000 less than the initial budget.
When I was young, a young man in New York, we had a problem called a skating rink. It took 8 years. Everyone knows the Wollman skating rink. They now study it in all the business schools. They're all nodding their heads. We all studied it. It wasn't such a little deal. It was a 80,000-foot rink. It's a very big rink. And the government, under Mayor Ed Koch, couldn't get it built. They were trying, it was actually a renovation, it wasn't even building. And after 8 years, and I have a daughter growing up, she kept saying, Dad, I want to go ice skating. And for 7 years, I said, I can't. There's no ice. And I'd go over to the rink and I'd see the men and their workers, and they'd be sitting down. They had lunch breaks. It would take like 4 or 5 hours. There'd be hundreds of guys sitting down at the rink. I said, boy, that's terrible. And I'd pass it. And after the 7th year, I went to Koch. And I said, Ed, I got it. I can do this thing fast. This is ridiculous. They're not working. They're using the wrong everything. And I met with the unions. I met with people that do refrigeration. They were doing refrigeration. The engineer was based in Miami, Florida. I said, it's true. And they were using Freon. And Freon, that means if you have a little tiny hole in 30 miles of pipe, little tiny hole, it's not going to work. Gas, it'll go out. And I said, doesn't sound good, but why do we want a guy? So I called up the Montreal Canadiens ice hockey team. I said, could I ask you a question? Who does your rinks? Oh, we have somebody excellent. He's based right here in Montreal. I said, now we're talking. He immediately said, you can't use Freon. It won't work. It'll freeze, it won't work. You have to use brine. You know what brine is? It's water with salt in it. How simple could that get? So on top of everything else, it was much less expensive. Anyway, I got to town. Ed Koch said, will you do it? Because it was a very huge embarrassment for the New York people. They all know what I'm talking about. You know, when I talk about the price, the biggest problem I had was demolition. That was the biggest cost. I had to demolish everything that was done. So I got it done. I got everybody together, and we got it done. And to this day, it's the most successful ice skating rink. I still run it. I run it. Nobody, every time it comes up, the city they don't want to take any chances. But I've run it for many years, and it's the #1 in the world, and it does great. I got together with everybody. The city, the council, everything had to be done fast. The beauty is, I did it in 4 months. This is after 8 years. I did it in 4 months. I did it for $1.8 million. The city had spent over $20 million. And I always say most of it was demolition. Okay? That's what happens. And you can do that with this country. You can do it with the country.
In the late 80s and early 90s, after Trump purchased the Taj Mahal Casino, His company was unable to meet loan payments, and after increasing debt and a real estate collapse occurred, Trump was close to business bankruptcy. Of course, since announcing his candidacy for president, the media has brought up Donald Trump's 4 bankruptcies. But what they don't tell you is that, first of all, Donald Trump himself never went bankrupt. It was 4 of his companies that filed for Chapter 11. And Chapter 11 means that Trump's companies paid back the money with interest over, a certain amount of time. And what's even more amazing is how Trump had financial difficulties in the 1990s and yet came back bigger, better, stronger than ever before, which is really truly impressive and shows the greatness of our capitalist economy.
In the early 90s, I had a lot of trouble. We had a real estate collapse. Everybody was, half of my friends were going bankrupt. They were good builders, good developers. They were in deep trouble. I was in very deep trouble. I owed billions and billions of dollars. I never went bankrupt, but I'll tell you something. I certainly use the word a lot in terms of my own thought process. The fact is, you just have to keep on chugging. You have to keep going. And I had an expression, this was 1990, and I came up with an expression that was used by a lot of magazines, survive till 95. I had to survive. I survived till 95, and today my company is much bigger, much stronger, much everything. It's a solid, unbelievable company, but much bigger than it ever was in the 80s. And that was prime time for me. 80s was very prime time. This is much better. So if you focus, if you stay focused, if you know what you're doing, if you learn your subject, but if you really love what you're doing, you're going to succeed. You're going to succeed.
While Trump was struggling financially, the origins of the celebrity alter ego of Donald Trump began to emerge with his highly publicized divorce with Ivana Trump, as well as his subsequent second marriage to Marla Maples.
The greatest, the biggest, the best. This time, though, it's a breakup. Now under development, the Trump divorce. Donald and Ivana are in negotiations. It was a storybook merger, or so it seemed, the billionaire builder and the Czechoslovak model, married for almost 13 years, the public personification of marital bliss.
I always said I'm a traditional girl. Donald is the boss, and I like it that way.
If it's a meal, she'll make a meal. If it's a family, she'll raise a family. And if it's running the Plaza Hotel, it's running the Plaza Hotel.
Donald Trump reportedly walked out this week, saying the marriage was no longer working and hoping to settle under terms of a prenuptial contract guaranteeing Ivana the house, the kids, and more than $20 million. Ivana has rejected the deal through a lawyer calling the contract unconscionable and fraudulent.
Little articles, so-and-so, big names, getting divorced, getting divorced. And with me, it turns out to be like, 22 days of tabloids and covers, and it was ridiculous. I don't know. Perhaps you can tell me. I was surprised. I really underestimated what this thing would be in terms of how it ended up.
Knowing that now, is there anything you could have done differently?
Probably not. The press puts an article on the front page, whether it's the New York Post or the Daily News or whatever newspaper it might be. And if it sells, and all of a sudden they notice that day they sold more newspapers, they're going to do it again, and they're going to do it again.
The divorce with Ivana was a big deal when it came out, and it really signified, Trump as a celebrity in American culture. Of course, he was a staple of success and wealth, but it's also how he got his nickname, the Donald, because Ivana, she misunderstood when to use the word "the." So, he became more of a celebrity than he was before, but obviously still primarily a businessman. But it was a big deal when it came out in the early 90s.
Trump, the game. I think you'll like it. I put together some really impressive deals. But this thing you've pulled off, it's amazing. A big and tasty for just $1? How do you do it? What's your secret?
We eat our pizza the wrong way.
Crust first.
Go big or go home.
Because they eat big pizza like the big New Yorker from Pizza Hut.
You've got to be losing money on this.
Hi, I'm Donald Trump to talk to you about the remarkable convenience of the Visa check card.
When it comes to great steaks, I've just raised the stakes. Trump steaks are the world's greatest steaks. The Donald J. Trump Signature Collection, only at Macy's.
Oreo has rejected my bid to buy the DSRL, so we lick race for it, right here with double stuffed gold.
Welcome to Room 9.
Looking good, number 9, looking good.
After divorcing his second wife, actress Marla Maples, Trump slowly began to regain his empire in the mid to late 1990s. And eventually owned the Miss Universe, Miss USA, and Miss Teen USA beauty pageants for 19 years, which are considered among the highest pageants in the world. In the early 2000s, Trump World Tower, a 72-story residential tower across from the United Nations, was built, and Trump Place, a multi-building development, was built along the Hudson River. On Columbus Circle, Trump International Hotel and Tower was constructed, spanning a massive 44 stories. In 2004, Trump would embark on a new journey into the world of television.
New York, my city, where the wheels of the global economy never stop turning. A concrete metropolis of unparalleled strength and purpose that drives the business world. My name's Donald Trump, and I'm the largest real estate developer in New York. I own buildings all over the place, model agencies, the Miss Universe pageant, jetliners, golf courses, casinos. I want to pass along my knowledge to somebody else. I'm looking for The Apprentice.
The Apprentice premiered January 8, 2004 on NBC, and was a huge success for both the network and for Trump. The show revolved around a handful of contestants from various businesses or schools that competed with one another to have the dream job of a lifetime, running one of Trump's companies for a year. The show would go on to have 15 seasons with Trump and would be one of NBC's most consistently watched shows. I remember when I first watched The Apprentice more than 8 years ago, I always admired Donald Trump and his work ethic, and I think a lot of what he told on a show of what you should do and how you should be, that I've modeled my work ethic and my success tips, after that. I looked up to him and I said, this is a guy that really, he should be running the country. He's talking about, things, he gets stuff done on time, ahead of time actually, and under budget. And a lot of shows that were business related tried to go up against The Apprentice, but they always failed. They just couldn't beat the Donald. It never worked like that. He started bringing business into entertainment, and it really showed a side that a lot of blue collar people and or people that just aren't in business don't see about business. And it really inspired me to have a really good work ethic.
You're fired. You're fired.
In his personal life, Trump would marry his third wife, model Melania Knauss, in 2005, and would have his fifth child, Barron, in 2006. Trump's three oldest children, Eric, Ivanka, and Donald Jr., now work for the Trump Organization, and like Dad, are exemplary examples of business people.
Early upbringing, I'd always say to him, no drugs, no alcohol, no cigarettes. And now I add for Barron, and I'd drive him crazy. I'd say every time they'd leave, no drugs, no alcohol, no cigarettes. Repeat after me, and I'd have to repeat. They'd go, Ivanka would go, Dad, will you leave me alone? I had a brother, Fred, who was sadly an alcoholic, a serious alcoholic. And he was really unable to stop. And he'd always tell me, don't you ever drink. So he was much older than me, and it really has an impact, when you have that kind of an age difference. But he'd point, don't you ever drink and don't you ever smoke. He'd add the smoke in it because he smoked and he drank.
Trump even had a public battle with Rosie O'Donnell, which many say he emerged victorious from.
Well, Rosie O'Donnell's disgusting. I mean, both inside and out. You take a look at her, she's a slob. I mean, I'd look her right in that fat, ugly face of hers. I'd say, Rosie, you're fired.
Things were going great for Trump, whom was richer and bigger than ever before. But as always, he had to top himself at his own game. And what better way to do that than to take on the biggest renovation job of his career, the United States of America. Donald Trump was always interested in politics. As early as the late 1980s, he even wrote several articles on U.S. foreign relations titled, "There's Nothing Wrong with America's Foreign Defense Policy That a Little Backbone Can't Cure," which revolved around the U.S.'s poor trade deals, one of many topics Trump still talks about to this day.
I know people have talked to you about whether or not you want to run. Would you ever?
I just probably wouldn't do it, Oprah. I probably wouldn't, but I do get tired of seeing what's happening with this country. And if it got so bad, I would never want to rule it out totally, because I really am tired of seeing what's happening with this country, how we're really making other people live like kings, and we're not.
You've said, though, that if you did run for president, you believe you'd win.
Well, I don't know. I think I'd win. I tell you what, I wouldn't go in to lose. I've never gone in to lose in my life. And if I did decide to do it, I think I'd be inclined, I would say that I would have a hell of a chance of winning, because I think people, I don't know how your audience feels, but I think people are tired of seeing the United States ripped off.
Trump was even asked by Chris Wallace at the 1988 Republican convention if he was considering getting into politics.
You have flirted with the idea of politics. Now you're here at your first national convention. Does that get you interested in possibly making the plunge?
Now you have to tell me something. Who told you I flirted?
Well,
I didn't know that I flirted with.
Well, you took out full-page ads in the New York Times to talk about your foreign policy. Some people would say...
I do feel very strongly about the country. I love the country, but I think you're going to have probably George Bush as your next president. He's an excellent guy, an excellent man. He's a friend of mine, and I'm here for that reason.
Well, I wasn't talking about this year, Mr. Trump, but you have said that if you ran for president, you'd win.
I think I'd have a very good chance. I mean, I like to win. When I do something, I like to win. I like to do well, and I think I probably would have a pretty good chance.
Many don't know that Donald Trump seriously considered running for the Reform Party's nomination for president in 2000. In 1998, Jesse Ventura subverted the two-party system and won the office of governor for the Reform Party in what is remembered as one of the largest populist victories in American history. While Ventura didn't want to run for president on the Reform Party ticket in 2000, he found someone he felt like would, his friend and fellow wrestling aficionado, Donald J. Trump. Veteran Republican strategist Roger Stone, who had been a top advisor to multiple presidents, was contacted by Trump to write a book for him that contained all of his political opinions. Consequently, The America We Deserve was published in February 2000, and is considered to be what Trump's platform would have been had he ran that same year. In a hypothetical CNN Time poll with Republican George W. Bush, Democrat Al Gore, and Reform Party candidate Donald Trump, Trump scored 7% of the vote, which is considered successful for a third-party campaign. Trump continued to feed into the speculation he was running when he published an op-ed titled, "America Needs a President Like Me," where he stated the U.S. needed a president like him for the new millennium. On October 7, 1999, Trump announced he had created an exploratory committee to look into running in 2000.
Donald Trump for president? We're looking exactly for that, a non-politician to seek the office, one that's not bought and paid for. He has no special interests. There's definitely interest there. His issues are in line with what we're looking for, and we feel he's a viable candidate, not only to gain and secure the 5% that the Reform Party needs to maintain its federal funding, but we think he's a winnable candidate and definitely offers a viable alternative.
While critics asserted that Trump was only touting a presidential run to improve his brand, Trump held a press conference with Governor Ventura where they addressed Ventura's subtle support for Trump and if Trump would, in fact, run.
Candidate Donald Trump. Friday, he attended a fundraiser for Minnesota Governor Jesse Ventura.
I think it's bad, it's terrible that lobbyists, professional lobbyists today are now deciding who will be allowed to debate for President of the United States. And it's obvious they don't want us in the Reform Party because they don't make money off us. They don't have influence with us.
Well, I agree 100% with Jesse. It's disgraceful. It's amazing that they can get away with it. The Republicans and Democrats are the ones that, as you know, chose I guess you have 3 members of each, and they're the ones that chose. If you look at your lobbyists and everyone else, they're all Republicans or Democrats. If people think that I'm running, we do great. A lot of people say, he's maybe not going to run, he's just having lots of fun. That's not the case. I know a lot of people that live here, and they love this man. He's done an amazing job.
Donald Trump doesn't need my encouragement. He's an individual, has been his whole life, and that is his choice to make. And at this time, I have taken a very neutral attitude on whether, because the choice needs to be his, and just as the choice to run for governor was mine.
If I do decide to do this, which I very well might, Jesse's support would be very important to me. If I can win, I believe I can do a very good job. Otherwise, I wouldn't be running. It's as simple as that. Foreigners all the time. I deal with foreign leaders all the time. I know many of the foreign leaders probably better than a lot of the so-called candidates that are running on the Republican and Democratic tickets. I think I'd get along very well with them, and I think you'd have a lot less gridlock in Washington if I decide to do this and if I won.
History shows that when the third party begins to rise up, the other two parties will combine their efforts to destroy the third party movement. When I ran for mayor of Brooklyn Park, Minnesota in 1990, it was a nonpartisan election, yet the Democrats and Republicans co-signed a letter and mailed it to all the citizens of Brooklyn Park supporting the 20-year incumbent mayor and calling me the most dangerous man in the city. and all I did was pay my taxes and send my kids to public school. Yet I was the most dangerous man in the city. Now, after I won that election, 65% to 35%, and I won all 21 precincts, when it was all over, then both the Democrats and Republicans came courting me.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
However, due to Pat Buchanan, a very radical former Republican also running for the Reform Party nomination, Trump would eventually withdraw from the race on February 14, 2000, but still won the Reform Party primaries in California and Michigan. While Trump wrote a piece for the New York Times titled, "What I Saw at the Revolution," about his experiences with the Reform Party, he still teased a possible presidential run in 2004.
You know, Jesse Ventura predicted it in that press conference. You know, he said that the two-party system, they didn't like any other outsiders coming in, and they pretty much helped destroy Donald Trump's chances of having an opportunity to run in the 2000 election, because the Republican Party took Pat Buchanan, which was an extreme right-winger who has many unfavorable opinions, and they pushed him into the Reform Party, which essentially collapsed the entire party, with people like Trump and Ventura both leaving. So, it truly shows that they didn't want Trump to run then, and they really didn't want him to run now. So I think the Republicans are getting a little bit of their own medicine in the 2016 election.
Donald Trump was with us at the Reform Party back then. Maybe Donald's just giving them a taste of their own medicine.
Well, I know you're friends with Donald Trump, so let me ask you this question. You've known him for 20 plus years. Do you think he's for real, or is this a publicity stunt?
Oh, it's for real now.
In March 2011, a Wall Street Journal NBC poll had Trump leading among all potential Republican nominees for president, including eventual nominee Mitt Romney. Another poll done by Newsweek showed Trump only points away from incumbent Barack Obama. By April 2011, he had a 9-point lead over all other Republican contenders.
You know, I really believe Donald Trump wanted to run for president in 2000 and in 2012, but I just think that the timing wasn't right. Now, I don't know if I believe in destiny or not, but it looks like that, it was meant to be that Donald Trump would run in 2016, because his chances of winning now were a lot better than they were in 2012 and 2000. And also, he was able to continue his business deals and continue his show The Apprentice, and he was able to establish, his Tea Party roots more, which included, speaking at CPAC, the conservative, conference, and as well as, questioning Barack Obama's place of birth, which really solidified him in the Tea Party movement and has really helped him in the 2016 election.
We begin with our new interview with potential presidential candidate Donald Trump.
What I am saying is there's a question, and there's a bigger question now than 2 months ago when I first started. And he doesn't have a birth. He might have it. And you know what, Savannah? I hope he has it. I won't make a decision till June, but I will make a decision. And it may surprise people, frankly, but I will make a decision sometime prior to June. I love this country. I hate what's happened to this country.
On May 16, 2011, Trump said he would not run for president, and cited business deals and The Apprentice as reasons as to why he made this decision.
I will not be running for president as much as I'd like to, and I want to thank everybody very much.
In February of 2015, Donald Trump did not renew his contract with NBC for The Apprentice, and on March 18th, formed an exploratory committee for president.
So why not run? I'll tell you something.
I'll see what
happens.
Honestly,
you've had all these business successes. What more do you need?
I understand that. I'll see what happens.
I could straighten out this country. I could make it great again. I could make this country so prosperous.
As an avid fan of The Apprentice, I remember in February of 2015 when Trump said he was not going to renew the show. I was saying to myself, I said, please don't do it. You'll never win. Everybody doesn't like you. Republicans think you're a joke. I love you. I think you're great, but nobody's going to vote for you. Nobody's going to like you. Just stay with what you're doing. Stay with your business. Stay with The Apprentice. It's a great show. I said, please, please, Donald, don't do it. And, of course, he did. I remember when I first heard Trump's slogan, "Make America Great Again," I said, that is the worst slogan. That is the most cliche political slogan. It is horrible, and it will never work. Little did I know, I was questioning one of the greatest branders of our time, who had also taken that slogan from one of the most admired presidents of our time. There's just no other way to put it. It's truly brilliant, the slogan, "Make America Great Again." You know, I definitely feel much different now than I did a year ago. I am proud of what Donald Trump has done.
On June 16, 2015, from Trump Tower, Donald Trump announced he was running for President of the United States.
I am officially running for President of the United States, and we are going to make our country great again.
Regardless of the hate that Trump got, this speech was monumental in American politics, and what followed was even more so.
Criticism against Donald Trump continues. A lot of Mexicans saying that they feel very, very offended by the comments he made.
Nobody should be able to speak like that.
Many Mexicans say that businesses that have relationships with Donald Trump should sever those relationships.
NBC is cutting ties with Donald Trump over recent derogatory statements that the veteran businessman made about immigrants.
That Mexico on a whole is just a hotbed of rapists and killers?
Yeah, I mean, he, in an interview with the O'Reilly Factor, he supported his comments.
There's a piñata factory that is manufacturing piñatas in the shape of Donald Trump.
Donald Trump began being labeled as a racist after his strict comments about illegal immigration during his announcement speech. The media constantly bombarded him with these allegations, and many voters began to believe the narrative.
Donald Trump never said anything that was racist towards Hispanics, Latinos, or Mexicans. He was referring to illegal immigrants that cross the southern border to the United States, that's between the United States and Mexico, illegally. And he was simply saying that it can cause an increase in crime, it can destroy our infrastructure, and it can ruin our economy, which all those facts are true.
When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're not sending you. They're not sending you. They're sending people that have lots of problems, and they're bringing those problems with us. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists, and some, I assume, are good people. But I speak to border guards, and they tell us what we're getting. And it only makes common sense. It only makes common sense. They're sending us not the right people. It's coming from more than Mexico. It's coming from all over South and Latin America, and it's coming probably from the Middle East. But we don't know, because we have no protection, and we have no competence. We don't know what's happening. And it's got to stop. And it's got to stop fast.
The Center for Immigration Studies corroborates what Trump said, as they predict a 40% increase in the U.S. population between 2010 and 2040. Yet, people believe the media narrative that Trump is somehow a racist. In any other political campaign, a candidate that was facing this much heat would just come out and apologize for what they said. I mean, take Herman Cain in 2012 when, untrue sexual assault allegations came out, and he suspended his campaign over it after leading in the polls for a few weeks. But Trump did something that was truly unique, historic, trailblazing, and yet so simple. He didn't apologize.
It's not just Mexico. Everybody's pouring through the border. And I'm angry at Mexico because Mexico allows it to happen.
Okay.
But of course, they're criminals in many cases.
Well, okay.
Why would I change that statement?
All right, so
by the way, all you have to do is speak to the border guards and they'll tell you what's happening.
All right. What they took offense to was that it sounded as if you were calling all Mexicans rapists and drug dealers and such. And of course, I know you probably didn't intend that.
Of course I wouldn't do that.
Okay. All right. So we're going to have to see how this plays out in the courts. Because
what's so interesting is how the media has predicted the downfall of Trump for months on end, and yet every time they do, he just gets stronger.
I think the guy has no significant substance as a political candidate, and I think the American people are going to see that when they get him up there on the stage. So I'm not too worried about him sticking around for far too long.
Donald Trump in the top tier, just behind former Florida Governor Jeb Bush.
Donald Trump, according to the polling, is a solid prospect for presidential frontrunner.
ABC's John Carl here with the story. And John, if this were a traditional campaign, end of the line, but with Trump, who knows?
That's right. Donald Trump says there is no way he is dropping out of this race. And in face of condemnation from virtually every major figure in the Republican Party,
Trump is number one at 24%.
Donald Trump, it seems he keeps rising in the polls no matter what he says.
The new Quinnipiac poll shows him leading the Republican field in 3 key states.
Trump defies his detractors once again.
Donald Trump now leads with 36%.
The new poll just came out right now from The Economist, where it's number one again.
More good news for Donald Trump. You love the polls, right?
I love them.
We released 3 national polls last week. 3 polls last week. The national poll, Iowa, New Hampshire, you're ahead by far. And then you release this controversial statement. Why not just sit on your big lead and just let it ride?
Because, Don, I have to do what's right.
Donald Trump has had some of the highest poll numbers in recent political history, some reaching the mid to high 40s. There have been reports that as many as 20% of Democrats are defecting to the Republican Party to vote for Donald Trump in the GOP primaries.
Trump's poll numbers, which have been consistently high since September, I might add, just show how groundbreaking this campaign really is. If it had been any other candidate getting numbers like 40, 38, 42, 45, whatever, they'd have said, this election's over, call it for Jeb Bush or Marco Rubio or whoever. I mean, it's unprecedented in a field of 6 people for one candidate to have that many. But in a field of up to 17, which is how many candidates we had in this race at one point, it's unbelievable. It's remarkable. And with what I'm beginning to call Trump Democrats that are willing to cross over from the Democratic Party to the GOP to vote for Donald Trump, this is something truly historic that we haven't seen since the Reagan Revolution in the 1980s.
Trump has had crowd sizes ranging from 10 to 35,000, breaking the occupation limit in many arenas.
People in America are tired of politicians who are controlled by special donors. They want somebody who will stand up for what they believe, who isn't controlled, and who tells the truth. Donald Trump is self-funding his campaign. He doesn't apologize for his rhetoric, and he always is honest with the American people, and I think that's why he's gained so much support and so much respect from people all around the country. Most of all, he's honest and he doesn't have rehearsed speeches. People can see that he is genuine and that he genuinely wants to fix the country. You know, this is why when people watch these presidential GOP debates between Trump and these politicians, that people at home, they cheer and they get excited from their sofas, from their couch, you know, when they see Trump going after these politicians, because he's representing them in the revolution against the Washington machine.
Rand Paul shouldn't even be on this stage. He's number 11. Oh, I know. You're a tough guy, Jeb.
It is, and we need to have a leader.
Then his poll numbers tanked. He's got that's why he's on the end. Let me talk. Quiet.
Trump is unfiltered, and people would much rather prefer to have someone who is perceived as a bully, yet genuine, than nice and fake.
The following are Donald Trump's positions on the issues. He supports the smallest government possible, and as little foreign intervention as possible. Trump was even against the Iraq War when it was unfavorable to have that opinion.
It wasn't Saddam Hussein that attacked the World Trade Center, okay? In fact, those people, when they sent their families back, most of them went back to Saudi Arabia. It wasn't Saddam Hussein that took down the World Trade Center. And in fact, Saddam Hussein killed terrorists. They had very few terrorists because he didn't want terrorists in Iraq, and he killed terrorists. So we go and attack Saddam Hussein. Now, Iraq now is the #1 breeding ground for terrorists. All the terrorists go to Iraq to learn their trade. You know, we all have trades, right? And they go to Iraq. But you didn't have that when Saddam Hussein was running Iraq with an iron fist. Now you do. Now, we took out Saddam Hussein. What have we created? A mess. And the day we leave Iraq, it's going to be, forget it.
Trump believes in free market health care, with more competition over state lines to lower the prices.
When I buy health insurance, I can't go across state lines to buy it.
Yeah.
I should be able to go to Iowa. If I want to buy health care for my people, as long as it's a strong company, I should be able to bid it out.
His tax system includes a simplification with 4 brackets, where the poorest percentage of people pay 0 income tax.
There will be a major tax reduction
You know, people try to say that Trump hates the little guy and that he's only in it for rich people and he's only in it to help himself, when it's just ridiculous. I mean, the media loves to play the clip of Trump saying, I got a small loan of $1 million from my dad, which, by the way, he did pay back with interest. But anyway, the media loves to play that and make it, and you know, when he said a small loan of $1 million, he didn't mean that $1 million was a small amount of money. What he meant was, in comparison to what he has now, which is over $10 billion, the loan that he had was so minute, and look at what he has done with that, you know. And what's so ironic too, on top of that, and of course, if he didn't understand money, he wouldn't be nearly as successful as he is today. But you know, what's ironic too is the fact that Bernie Sanders pretends like he's for the people and that Trump is, you know, the evil rich guy. But Trump's tax plan is better for the poor than Bernie Sanders' tax plan is, because with the poor, they don't pay any income tax under Trump. So it's really ironic that the media paints Trump as this really evil rich guy when he's actually the most populist person running for president.
As previously stated, Trump is strong on the border and wants to fix the troubled wall between the U.S. and Mexico. Trump is strong on gun rights and the Second Amendment, as well as socially conservative on a number of issues. He has also been very strong on trade deals with other countries ever since the 1980s, with him saying other nations are living like kings at the expense of the United States. Some of these nations include China, Japan, and Mexico. Trump is also against job-killing trade legislation like NAFTA and the TPP.
Like Jesse, I believe strongly in free trade, but at the same time I feel strongly that some of our trading partners are ripping us off big league.
Despite what the media says, Donald Trump has been quite consistent on the issues. If you compare what he said in the America We Deserve to now, he was always for a healthcare system that was market-based, just a different approach on how to model it. He was always uncomfortable with the concept of abortion, and was always for the Second Amendment. He just became a stronger supporter of organizations like the NRA.
Trump's public voting record even has him registered as a Republican in every single election he's participated in since 1987. That is the definition of consistency. Trump is a master deal maker and a great leader. He isn't beholden to any donors and is controlled by we the people. He's honest with the American people and wants to create economic and fiscal freedom for all in the United States. If that doesn't make a good president, I don't know what does.
Now, let's get to why you've been trained by the media to hate Donald Trump.
First off, Trump isn't controlled by the big donors who fund politicians and media companies. Did you know that over 90% of what you watch and hear every day on television is only controlled by 5 to 6 large corporations? That kind of makes you think about how different things are on the news from station to station, doesn't it?
Trump is promising to lower taxes for the poorest of Americans, stop these horrible trade deals with other nations, and tax hedge funds, which essentially involves rich hedge fund managers committing embezzlement and not paying taxes. All of this hurts the lobbyists and donors who fund politicians and the media, but helps us, the people, the blue-collar workers. Why wouldn't they want you to hate him? He's talking about helping the people destroy their control of us and our country.
You know, they try to say Trump's this evil person who hates poor people and everything else, and but it's so not true. You know, he saved the Veterans Day parade in New York in the late 90s. He stopped a mugging in progress in 1991. He saved a small Georgia farm in 1986 from being destroyed. He let Jennifer Hudson stay in his building after her mother, brother, and nephew were murdered. For free. He didn't make her pay anything, and he said she can stay for as long as she wants. She gets free everything. And, you know, he's also even tried to rebuild the World Trade Center with his own plan for New York.
Yet he never asks for anything in return and never brags about his philanthropy. The GOP is also afraid that Trump will run a third-party campaign if he loses the nomination, which would split the Republican vote. The GOP even forced Trump to sign a loyalty pledge in September of 2015 to try and prevent him from doing this, although it is not legally binding and he can break it at any time. On February 9th, history was made. A businessman, with no political experience, won a presidential primary.
Fox News can now project that Donald Trump will win the Republican presidential primary.
When Trump won New Hampshire, It proved he could get past the dirty tricks and the lies and the deceit of the media.
Donald Trump has mirrored Ronald Reagan since the start of his campaign, and winning New Hampshire was just another way to continue down that path. Donald Trump is one of my heroes, and has been for over 8 years.
Mr. Trump, you're my hero. So you agree, right? Yeah.
This election, the American people have a big decision. Will they elect another Washington politician who's beholden to their donors and who has intentions that aren't the best for us? Or will we try something new? Will we elect a non-politician, a businessman with a proven track record, who can make America great again?
You have to be able to separate yourself from the pack. You have to learn how to take that no and change it into a yes. So oftentimes it's those no's that can make a life a lot better than those yeses. You can't take a lot of nonsense from people. You have to go after them. I've always believed it. The harder I work, the luckier I get. There are a lot of ways to make money today, far more than you could have made, in my opinion, 2 years ago. Why do entrepreneurs fail? What's the number one reason? And essentially it's because they give up, they quit. They don't have that stick-to-itiveness. And if you look at successful people, unless they were very lucky and born into it, the people that don't quit, that never ever give up, those are the ones that ultimately become successful. You want to enjoy what you do, you want to do a great job for yourself and your family, but ultimately in the scope of things, what really matters? Never ever give up. You can change and you can move around, but never, ever give up. You can't take your eye off the ball. When you love what you do, when you really love what you do, you work harder. Success is seeing yourself as victorious. You have to see yourself. You have to really believe in yourself.
How do I, as an average person, begin?
Well, first of all, never think of yourself as average. You started off with the wrong question because you're not average. You've got a lot going. I see you're smart. I see you're very beautiful. You just have to get that word average out of your vocabulary, and you have to tell yourself that you're great, and you have to believe it. If you can say it and don't believe it, it doesn't matter. So just go out there and work hard.
We just have to hope and pray for the best. Donald Trump has had my vote since day one, and he'll have it on Election Day as well.